Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just Saying It podcast. I'm your host, Missy Morris. Today, we are going to be talking about the fires that happened here on Maui on August 8th, 2023. As of today, the day I'm recording this, it is August 19th, so it has been 11 days since the fires. I really debated on whether or not I was going to make any podcast episodes in regards to the fires. I just didn't want to be disrespectful in any way. But after watching how things have unfolded over the past 11 days, how our local officials have handled the situation, as well as all the information that has come out from locals on the ground in Lahaina, and um, just a lot of things that I've been hearing. And there's just a lot of information that I feel like is missing from other recounts of what happened here on Maui and what's been happening since. Um, so I wanted to put out kind of a timeline of events so far leading up to the fires and afterwards, and just things that most people probably wouldn't hear because here on Maui everything's coconut wireless. So meaning a lot of everything is through word of mouth. It's talking story to your neighbor in the parking lot or your friends, and everything is shared through word of mouth. So a lot of stuff a lot of information is not on the internet in regards to what happened that day and what's been happening since. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to share that and um, give justice to the truth. So I personally live on the Y side on Maui, and I was fortunate enough to not be in jeopardy of danger of the fires, any of the fires that happened on the day of August 8th. I was first alerted to the Upcountry fire August 8th in the morning, about 8:30 a.m. I was on my way to work. Was working Upcountry that day, and I could see the big fire, the big Olinda fire burning above Makawao when I was driving on my way to work. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard, but there were very, very, very strong winds um, a couple days leading up to the day of the fires, and then all day and the next day after the fires as well. So we had extremely strong winds going, um, and there were down power lines all over the island due to the strong winds. So I saw the big fire burning above Makawao. Um, I ended up not working upcountry that day because my coworker that I was meeting up with, she had to cancel her day that day because her and her family had to evacuate due to the upcountry fire. They lived in Makawao, so they had to evacuate their home. Um, and so that was that. We just kept an eye on it. I noticed how strong the winds were, and I was worried that if it didn't get taken care of, it was going to blow all the way past Makawao, all the way to Kula, and potentially all the way down the mountain to Kihei if it didn't get taken care of. So we were worried about that. But I will say, if you were not on the west side on the day of August 8th, you didn't really know that anything was going on over there. There were one or two county alerts via Facebook, the County of Maui Facebook page that talked about, that just mentioned a small brush fire that had started in Lahaina, but most of the information coming out about the fires that day was about the upcountry fires. And so, also, because of the really strong winds that we had been experiencing, apparently there was a hurricane about 800 miles off the coast, off the southern coast of the islands, that was causing these very strong winds. Um, so the winds, like I said, they were so strong a couple days leading up to the day of the fires, and there were down power lines in Lahaina too. So 24 hours down power lines and down cell towers. So 24 hours leading up to the fires, there was no there was a lot of power outages and a lot of cell service was down. So there was very little communication going in and out of West Side the day of the fires due to power outages and cell service being down before the fire started. Um, so the first recount or the first alert to the Lahaina fire was the around 6 a.m. on the morning of the 8th. So the Upcountry fire was already burning. Apparently, it started just after midnight on the 8th, the morning of the 8th. And so by the time I saw it 8:30 in the morning, it had apparently been burning for about 8 hours by that point. And the Lahaina fire started around 6 a.m. near the Lahaina Luna Road. And that was all we really knew about it. Like I said, County of Maui was just, they were just reporting on the Upcountry fire, and there was no cell service coming out of Lahaina. So if you weren't West Side, you didn't really know what was going on. And then around noonish, there was a post by the County of Maui Facebook page that said that the Lahaina fire had been 100% contained. So that was that was the last notification people got on a grand scale about the Lahaina fire. And it was about noonish that day that said the Lahaina fire was 100% contained. Excuse me. Well, apparently, and that was it. So we went about our day, like for me personally, I continued to work that day. Nothing, we didn't think anything of it. Well, apparently, there was a flare up. That's all it says. There was a flare up that caused the fire to basically jump the highway and ignite the entire town. So by 3:30 the afternoon of the 8th, this flare up happened, and by 4:30, almost the entire Lahaina town was engulfed in flames. People were, um, there was no time to really flee because there was no power. So people couldn't turn on the news to see what was going on. There was no cell service, so people weren't getting phone calls or text messages about the fire. And the county, whether or not they decided to, or it was just their incompetence, the sirens, the emergency sirens that are designed for emergency situations, including wildfires, never sounded. So the only way people knew to evacuate the Lahaina fire was by looking out your window or being outside, basically watching the black smoke roll in. So the black smoke starts rolling in, and it's moving so fast because, like I was saying, the winds were howling that day. They were they were upwards to 80 miles per hour all fucking day long, like all just going, 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 never a break. Like it was crazy, the winds. So the flames rolled in so fast, and within, it seems like an hour or two, the entire Lahaina town was engulfed in flames. Most people had minutes, if not seconds, to try to evacuate. Now, I've heard from several different people that were in Lahaina during the fires that were evacuating, that when they went to evacuate Lahaina town, there were police officers barricading the exits to get onto the highway and to flee the fire from the town to escape north or south. Several people have said that there were police officers barricading the exits out of Lahaina town off, saying that there were other fires that they couldn't go that way because of fire, so they needed to stay in town. So that is why there are cars stacked on stacked on stacked on stacked that were trying to flee. They all got stuck in Lahaina town. Whether or not they were corralled and barricaded, that's up to every individual to decide. But if you look at the way the fire burned, it came down off the mountain right into town. And then from the highway all the way to the coast, it just engulfed in flames, burned so many neighborhoods, burned historical buildings, burned historic Front Street to the ground, the harbor. Boats were lighting on fire. People in their cars, they had to go on foot because the flames were coming fast, so fast that they couldn't escape. Many people jumped out of their cars into the ocean, trying to escape the flames. Those that jumped into the ocean had to be there for hours from about 5 p.m. till 2 o'clock in the morning when the Coast Guard could finally come in and rescue them. Um, the people that were in the ocean say they experienced such strong winds and current. It was hard to stay afloat. The wind was moving so fast and the heat was so strong that there were times that they had to keep their bodies submerged in the water because their skin was burning from how hot the air was. The wind was ripping so fast that it was spraying golf ball and baseball sized pieces of embers through the air. Um, Many people didn't make it. Many people died of asphyxiation due to the smoke. Many people died in their homes. I've heard of, I've heard some really horrific stories. Um, but a lot of people did make it. So the thing is, this was happening in the middle of the day. The fire started at around 3:30, and by 5 p.m., the entire town was engulfed in flames. Not the entire town, but most of the town was engulfed in flames, burning all night long. And us on the other side of the island, we had no idea what was even going on. We didn't know until the next morning. We woke up the next day, or in the middle of the night, we were getting calls and texts from loved ones on the mainland saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" We woke up to the fact that Lahaina was gone. And we had no idea the entire time until the next morning. So um, it was just so insane. So to hear that people trying to flee couldn't because the roads were blocked. Crazy. No sirens. Crazy. No cell service, no power. That wind was strong. Um, I've talked to people who've talked to the fire department, people that work for the fire department. Several people have told me that information that came out of the fire department, they were instructed to, once the fire was declared contained in Lahaina, the fire department was instructed to leave Lahaina and go fight the fires in Kihei. Now, Maui is a small island. We have limited resources. I've talked to so many people that have grown up here their whole lives or lived here for years and years that have told me there are never 3 fires going on the island at one time. The fact that the Upcountry fire was raging and then a fire started in Kihei and the Lahaina fire was happening all at the same time, very, very abnormal. So the firefighters were pulled to go fight the fires in Kihei, even though most of them did not believe that they should leave because they did not think that the Lahaina fire was fully contained. But they got orders to leave Lahaina and go fight the fires in Kihei. By the time they got to the tunnels, Lahaina was engulfed in flames. So that's a little suspicious if you don't, if you ask me. People that have grown up in Lahaina their whole lives have said the wind was so odd because it came off of the mountain, not the water, not the ocean. So in general, Maui's a very windy island. I would say um, we get strong winds often. It's not abnormal for us to get strong trade winds. Usually in the afternoons is when they roll in, and they can be very strong. But this wind was so strong and it never gave up. It was howling. I've heard from multiple people, not even in Lahaina, but all over the island that were like, that wind was just something different about that wind. So the way the wind was coming down and the way the fire was burning, it was coming in off the mountain through the valley and basically like fanning the flames all the way from the highway to the coast as it just raged and raged and raged and raged. Most of the damage done was a historic front street that had so many small local businesses and local local residential homes. Um, a lot of the burning, was weird the way it burned. Like it skipped some buildings, but not others. Burned some buildings, skipped some. Like one car was like completely melted, and then like one space in between, and then the car next to it completely fine. Um, you know, some churches still standing even amongst all the rubble. So just very suspicious stuff. So the next day, after everyone was alerted to what happened, the island immediately mobilized. We didn't have to wait for somebody to tell us that people over there were in need of help. So immediately people started mobilizing, started getting donations, started figuring out how to help the survivors. There were a lot of bus loads coming over from West Side to town. I personally volunteered at War Memorial almost every day last week until Sunday. Um, and so people were coming in from West Side shelters um, with nothing but the clothes on their back or a grocery bag that they were able to fill up before fleeing. Um, I'm sure most of them count themselves as lucky if they didn't lose somebody or if they weren't a victim themselves. But even though the community immediately mobilized, they were having a lot of issues getting the supplies that all the people that weren't directly impacted by the fires. We all got together, started making donations, starting getting water. We knew that we had to help each other, help the people on the other side, but it was hard getting the supplies over there because the police had barricaded the road. So only emergency personnel could get in and out of the west side. Even on the back side, you couldn't get in and out. They had it completely shut off for the first few days, except for very select people that could get in and out. A lot of people were really upset about that, especially people over in Lahaina side on west side, people up on Napili, near Ka'anapali, that weren't impacted. Their homes were fine. They were 20 minutes away from the fires, but they couldn't leave. They weren't even allowed to uh, they weren't allowed to go to town. They weren't allowed to go to south side. And most of them were still without cell service for days. So they were stuck over there. The power was off, the water was shut off. That's another thing to note that so many people were saying is that during the Lahaina fire, the fire hydrants were shut off. There was no water to actually fight these fires. No water coming into town to fight these fires. The fire hydrants were shut off. Weird. So the people that were left stranded west side, they were left stranded without food, without water, without information, except for planes flying overhead with like a air horn, like telling, not an air horn, with a whatever, a big speaker telling them things, like shouting at them as it's flying overhead. Just weird. They were completely cut off from any information, and the rest of the island was cut off from going over there. Instead of like barricading off the parts of the town that were damaged and allowing the highway to stay open. So it was difficult for those first few days to get supplies in and out of the west side, and there was no help. So FEMA and Red Cross, they came in and took over like 4 days after the disaster started, or 4 days after the fires. But there was no one here to help us, but there was a lot of red tape just getting supplies over there. So people, community members had to find ways around that. People were donating their own personal, not donating, they were utilizing their own boats to get supplies in and out of there, to get supplies in and out of the west side. Eventually, big cargo trucks full of supplies were let over. I know some people, donated or not donated, used their private planes to fly some supplies into west side. So eventually things did happen and supplies got over there, but it was met with a lot of resistance, which really upset the locals over there stranded and really upset a lot of the rest of the people on the island that were trying to help, knowing that they were without food, they were without water, many of them were without medications, because they had to flee. And so no one was going around making sure everyone was safe those first few days. It was that's not true. There were people over there making sure it was happening, but it was just such a mess trying to get the materials and the supplies that they needed. So since then, things have been very interesting. It's been very interesting watching the way our our public officials have been handling this, the way the mayor has been handling this, the way their governor has been handling this. I'll have to say, it's like watching an episode of South Park every time they get on for a press conference. It's pretty ridiculous. It's pretty insulting, for people like the head of a Maui emergency crises management guy to get on there and say he doesn't regret the sirens going off. Like, how are you going to say that, bro? How are you going to say that when there are so many people missing? So, as of today, the official fatality count is 114, I believe, them that came out of the county. 114 dead in the fire. 114 bodies, remains have been found. However, there are approximately 1,100 people still missing from the island. Um, it's a small island. There's not a lot of shelters. There's not a lot of, it's a small hospital. It wouldn't be much of a stretch to assume that most, if not all, of the people still missing are dead. That their remains are in the rubble of Lahaina, that they did not make it out. The police have stated that when they go to pick up the remains, because the fire was burning so hot, they just disintegrate in their hands. So, a lot of loss. A lot of loss. And people have questions. One thing that is a bit of misinformation floating around the internet is the fact that kids didn't have school that day, so they were home from school. That's not technically true. Last week was supposed to be the first week of school for Maui students. Most schools weren't actually starting on the 8th. Some of them were, and those for some students, and those were canceled due to the power outages, but most schools weren't even set to start sessions for all students on the 8th. However, it still was summer break, and a lot of middle school, high school kids are home during the daytime when their parents are away at work in the summertime. So there is a lot of loss. There is a lot of young lives lost. A lot of people still missing that most likely are no longer with us. My heart goes out to all those who were affected My heart goes out to all those who were directly affected by these fires. Anybody who lost somebody, anybody who lost their home, lost their car, their business, their pets. I'm sending you so much love and healing right now through this time. The fact that this happened here on Maui is just insane. The extent of the loss is unfathomable. It's overwhelming to comprehend. And things like President Biden offering the victims a one-time $700 payment. Are you fucking kidding me? $700? That's like half my fucking grocery bill as a single person here on Maui. Shit's expensive, okay? Like that is literally a spit in the face to these people. Like, you would have been better off doing nothing. So yeah, most people really aren't very happy that President Biden is coming to visit. No one wants to hear Sleepy Joe. Just go home. There's going to be a lot of people that don't want you here, that actively want you to go. So, $700, yeah, a spit in the face to the people of this land. And, now so many things are uncertain about what's going to happen moving forward. FEMA is here offering assistance for people that lost their homes. The first press conference that happened, we had the FEMA representative up there saying, "Don't worry, guys, we're going to build Lahaina back and we're going to build it back better." When have we heard that before? So the feds are involved. They are invested in Maui now. It's just going to be a shit show. I really hope people stand strong and don't sell off their land. I don't know what's going to happen moving forward. The future is so uncertain. And, if this is true, so we're going to do a hypothetical right now. If it's true that the sirens didn't go off on purpose, if it's true that the fire department was pulled from Lahaina right before the flames got unmanageable on purpose, if it's true that the fire department was pulled on purpose to go fight the fires in Kihei, if it's true that the water was shut off on purpose, if it's true that the power before the wind started wasn't shut off on purpose, right? Because if there's hurricane winds coming, usually the power would turn it off, or usually the power company would turn it off to not cause fires. If all those things are true, then that means at least the very top officials of our local government wanted Lahaina to burn. If it's true that police were barricading people in and the sirens didn't go off to warn people, and there was no cell service and no power to warn people, then we could assume that they wanted a lot of people to die. Now, I know that's fucking horrible to think of. I know most people are like, whoa, what are you talking about? Of course, government wouldn't want to kill people. Really? The government doesn't kill people on purpose to shepherd in their policies or their agendas? Were we not all just mandated by the government to take a poison that has since killed thousands and thousands of people, dropping dead, if not millions of people by now? Um, it doesn't take too much investigation to find out that the government is corrupt and they will do just about anything to make their policies happen, to shepherd in their agendas. Why was our governor, Josh Green, immediately talking about climate change as soon as the fires happened? Saying these fires are the result of climate change is another spit in the face to the people of this land. For decades upon decades, but starting by the time the land was stolen from the Hawaiian people in the first place, since then, the water has been used and abused, the land has been used and abused, the people have been used and abused. Water is directed from, aqueducts to feed into these resorts, to feed into these golf courses. Um, during the dry season, Maui residents are put on drought warning. So you've got residents of Upcountry and Lahaina that get fined $500 if they're caught watering their lawn or washing their car during drought season. But you sure as heck don't see the sprinklers stopping on the golf courses. You don't see the resorts telling their guests, sorry, pool services are closed this month because we're in a drought. No. But residents can't water their lawn. They can't wash their car. Shit gets dried out and dried out and dried out. And then fires happen. And then you want to claim it's fucking climate change? Nah, bro, it's not climate change. It's corruption. Corruption. Evil. So I will leave this episode with this. When will it be enough? When will we open our eyes as a collective to see the fucking evil that has overtaken this earth? When will we realize our power in numbers and fight back? How many people, how many of us peasants, us common people, how many of us have to die? How many of us did they have to murder before we fucking fight back? The things that have happened over the course of just my lifetime alone are sickening, and I'm so tired of it. I am so ready to fight against the fucking evil of this world. This is a call to action. When will it be enough? When will we fight back? So I don't know what the solutions are. All I know is that I'm tired of watching people roll over and die and allow the government to murder us. And I'm ready to fight back. So if you are too, follow me on social media to figure out what's coming next, what our next plan is. As a collective, as a humanity, evil has totally penetrated this world. And a lot of people are awakening to it. God is giving divine love and power to the warriors that need it right now. And if you feel called, if you feel like you are one of God's warriors here to fight for the side of light, it's time to rise up. It's time to settle into that, because this is a war. This is a war, a spiritual warfare, and I'm ready to fight back. For those wondering, my social media handle is at Just Saying It Pod. That's Just Saying It Pod. No G at the end of saying. And I'm just sending a lot of love, a lot of aloha to the people of Maui, to the people of this earth. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it's time to warrior up. I know there are a lot of people out there like me that are sick of these corrupt agendas, sick of these corrupt politicians, these corrupt leaders, world and local leaders, who would rather watch us burn than create a better society for humanity. So if you're like me, let's go. Let's fucking go. It's time to worry up. Let's do this. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day. I will try to continue to update people on what's going on with the fires here out of Maui. And yeah, scary, uncertain times that we are living, but we have got to come together as a community, as a people, to fight against what's going on. We do have the numbers. We do have the power in numbers. Please understand that. There's only so many of those people. If we all stood up, or the majority of us that are awake stood up, we can make a real impact. So, yeah. I hope you have a wonderful day. Love you all, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. Just bringing people back to common sense, bringing people be a voice of reason in this crazy world right now.